Hello, welcome to Ridgepoint Church Online, and thank you for being here. Special shout out to all of you watching on YouTube or our website, and those of you listening to our podcast. We are honored to have you with us. This week, we're wrapping up our 3-week teaching series, looking at the life of Samson from the Old Testament. And man, this guy is quite the character. We started by talking about his miraculous birth, his rebellious childhood, followed by some fascinating stories about his superhuman strength and his equally sized temper. And this week, we look at the conclusion of his story. And just like the rest of Samson's life, it's a cautionary tale full of strength and weakness, broken trust, and how God can bring redemption even in the midst of so much pain and regret. We often get caught up in the crazy and the miraculous parts of Samson's life, and understandably so. But just below the surface, we actually have a lot in common with Samson. And that's one reason why we're telling his story today. So, even though it's less than a happy ending, we have so much to learn. So let's wrap things up together now with our lead pastor, Pastor Brent, for week 3 of our study on Samson.
Before Samson was born, an angel told his parents that they were to raise him as a Nazirite and that he would begin to rescue Israel from the oppression of the Philistines. Now, a Nazirite, any non-priest Jew, male, female, who wanted to dedicate their life in a special way to service to God, could become a Nazirite. And you became a Nazirite by making the Nazirite vow, which included 3 things: never drink alcohol, never cut your hair, and never touch or even go near a dead body. So that was a Nazirite. So these are the 2 things about Samson. He's going to be a Nazirite, and he's going to help rescue Israel from the oppression of the Philistines. Throughout his life, though, Samson really struggled with fallout from his own selfishness and his emotions. He had uncontrolled anger. He was impulsive. He struggled significantly in his relationship decisions with ladies. And so there was a sense in which Samson really kind of wasted his life. Well, as we come to the last chapter of his story, we're in Judges 16, and Samson has fallen in love with the Philistine lady, Delilah. All right, here's what we read in verse 5. The rulers of the Philistines went to Delilah and said to her, "Entice Samson to tell you what makes him so strong and how he can be overpowered and tied up securely." Samson, I mentioned this last week, apart from his hair, he looked like me, okay? He didn't have like a bodybuilding Mr. Universe, physique. If he was like all muscle bound, everyone would have known where his strength came from. But they looked at him and he looked normal. So they're trying, these Philistine rulers, and scholars believe there are 5 rulers who came to her, and they said, each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver for a total of 5,500 pieces of silver. They went to Delilah because Samson had been chipping away at the Philistines in a number of superhuman strength episodes, and they wanted to capture him, but they were just scared of him because of his strength. So I said, let's get to Samson, find out the source of his strength through Delilah. Maybe she can seduce him into giving the secret of his strength, which was his hair. I mean, it was the Holy Spirit, but it was his hair, right? And so they offered to pay her 1,100 pieces of silver each, 5,500 pieces. Now, it's hard to make that currency exchange to today's dollars, but I did some Google research. And it's just a bucket of money regardless. At a minimum, they were willing to pay her $60,000. At a maximum, $300,000. And Delilah's saying, okay, I kind of like Samson, but not that much. So sure, I'll betray him for that $60,000, that $300,000. So 3 times she asked Samson seductively to tell her the secret of his strength. And 3 times he lied to her. Just played the game with her, okay? The first time, she said, tell me the secret of your strength. And she said, you look so nice and I love your muscles, okay? And he said, well, just tie me up with 7 bowstrings. Those are fresh animal tendons, which are evidently pretty strong. So she went to the local hardware store and the string and bowstring section, and she bought 7 or however many bowstrings. And I don't know, he is playing along with her, right? And he's just messing with her. And I suppose he knows that she's trying to like trap him, but he doesn't care because he loves her, all right? And so he lets her tie him up. And then, since the Philistines were hiding in a nearby room, she acted all surprised and said, oh, Samson, the Philistines are here. And they storm out, but he breaks those tendons like they were strings. Round 2. Oh, Samson, you embarrassed me by lying to me. If you love me, there will be no secret, so tell me the secret of your strength. And Samson said, well, tie me up with new ropes, and I'll be as weak as the next man. And so she went to the hardware store and went to the rope section and bought some new ropes. She came back. We don't know if she told him, hey, Samson, this will be fun. Sit in a chair and let me tie you up. Did he tie his legs, his arms to the armchair, chest? We don't know how she tied him up. Oh, no, Samson, the Philistines are here. They storm out. He breaks them like they're threads. Round 3. Samson, you keep lying to me. Please, please tell me the secret. He said, if you weave the 7 braids of my hair into that weaver's loom right over there, just weave my braids into that, I'll be as weak as the next man. And he played along with her. He let her do it. And so she weaves his long braids into the weaver's loom. And, oh, Samson, the Philistines are here. They storm out. He breaks free. There is a lot of money on the line for Delilah. So 3 strikes, she says, I'm not out yet. And so she kept at it day after day, nag, like waterboarding torture, you know. Samson had killed 1,000 men with a donkey's jawbone. He had ripped an 8,000-pound city gate off of its hinges, thrown it on his shoulders, and carried it up a hill. But he could not withstand the nagging of Delilah, and he broke. Verse 17. So he told her everything. No razor has ever been used on my head because I have been a Nazirite dedicated to God from my mother's womb. If my head were shaved, my strength would leave me and I would become weak as any other man. When Delilah saw that he had told her everything, she sent word to the rulers of the Philistines, come back once more. This time he's told me everything, right? So the rulers of the Philistines, those 5 rulers, returned with the silver in their hands. And after putting him to sleep on her lap, how sweet, right? She called for someone to shave off the 7 braids of his hair. And so she began to subdue him, and his strength left him. Then she called, Samson, the Philistines are here. And Samson thought he would just come through again, not realizing what had happened. But he did not know that the Lord had left him. Then the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza. Binding him with bronze shackles, they set him to grinding grain in the prison. So there would be a big trough with grain, and a wheel that moved around in a circle with a bar. And he just walked in circles all day, weak as the next man. And I wonder what went through his mind as he rewound his life. Verse 22, but the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. The Philistine rulers, and again there were 5 Philistine rulers because there were 5 city-states that made up the area that the Philistines controlled. The Philistine rulers held a great festival, offering sacrifices and praising their god Dagon. They said, our God has given us victory over Samson. And when the people saw Samson, they praised their God, saying, our God has delivered our enemy to us. The one who killed so many, that's Samson, is now in our power. So the celebration began. The wine was flowing freely, and when the crowd was half drunk, their hearts were merry. They said, call out Samson and make him dance and entertain us. And Samson was led to the middle of the great room in the temple there, the temple to Dagon, between 2 pillars that supported the roof. Takes us to verse 27. Now the temple was completely filled with people. All the Philistine rulers were there, and there were about 3,000 men and women on the roof who were watching as Samson amused them. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, sovereign Lord, remember me again. O God, please strengthen me just one more time. With one blow, let me pay back the Philistines for the loss of my 2 eyes. Then Samson pushed the 2 center pillars that held up the temple, and he prayed, let me die with the Philistines. And the temple crashed down on the Philistine rulers and all the people. So he killed more people when he died than during his entire lifetime. Later, his brothers and other relatives went down to get his body. They took him back home and buried him with his father, Manoah. Samson had led Israel for 20 years. And that's the end of the story. So what do we do with this? If you've been here any length of time, you know I usually have takeaways at the end, like what do we do with this? In Romans 15:4, which I think I mentioned a week or 2 ago, it says that the stories of old aren't there just for our intrigue or our entertainment. They're there to teach us, right? And sure, I will drop a couple of takeaways on you, but do you know that you can actually read the story of Samson at home? And then you can sit quietly and think, and you can pray and say, God, what lessons do you have for me? Like, you can actually read the Bible, ask God to speak to you, and he will. So part of this is on you, but I will drop a couple of takeaways on you, okay? So the first one I call a secondary one. It's not the centerpiece. And then what I would say is really the story of Samson as a whole. So the secondary one, sometimes when we're in toxic relationships, we need to set boundaries and maybe even walk away. Samson's relationships imploded. He just had a knack for getting into bad relationships. His first wedding, he never even made it through the wedding because of poor choices and lots of drama. Spent some time with a prostitute. Now he's with this Philistine Delilah who certainly doesn't love him very much, at least not $60,000 worth of love. And he just again and again got into bad relationships. Yes, as Christians, we should do everything we can to grow and to mend and to restore relationships with our siblings and our parents and our kids and our friends. And we don't just give up quickly on a relationship. But there are times when the relationship is toxic, perhaps even dangerous, and we need to draw boundaries. So Jesus, in Matthew 15, he had a toxic relationship with the Pharisees. He had tried and tried and tried to get along with them. And at one point, he was confronting them, and he walked away, and his disciples said, "Don't you know that you offended them?" And Jesus answered, this is Matthew 15:44, I think, or 14. He said, they're blind guides. Leave them be. Like he drew a line. He said, no, we got to put some separation. They're toxic. We can't fix this relationship, right? Now, Samson, was he just so naive that all these times when Delilah said, "Oh, Samson, the Philistines are here. I didn't know that." I mean, was he so naive that he didn't see her betrayal? I don't think he was naive. I think he saw it. But he was so in love, so in lust with her that he says, "I'll put up with that and to have her." And yet there's something in us that says, no, we need to learn to set boundaries. Okay? So I don't have all the answers. Someone once said, you can buy a house that needs fixing up, but be careful about marrying someone who needs fixing up. Right? Sometimes we just need to draw boundaries. The main lesson, not only of this Sunday, this week, but the whole story of Samson is that failure isn't final. I know it sounds like a bumper sticker or something, but it's still true. Like, failure isn't final. And I'm just glad. I don't understand all of Samson's motives, and he probably didn't have the greatest of motives clear to the end. But he begged one more time. He says, "Oh, sovereign Lord, I've messed up 1,000 times, and I look back, I was walking in circles, and yes, I've wasted my life, and I haven't taken advantage of all the gifts that you gave me, and I'm sorry, but can you give me strength one more time? Will you give me one more chance? Please don't let my life of failure be the end." It's not final. And God answered his prayer. He's still flawed. He didn't do everything right. Sometimes we look back at our life and we say, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that, and I'm ashamed of that." And it's not that hard to define ourselves by our past scars. But Jesus is saying, you're not defined by your past scars, you're defined by my scars, my cross scars. That's what defines you. No, that's not you. I will redeem you to your last breath. You surrender, you repent. Failure is not final. And it's a battle that we have to keep looking ahead and not just focusing on the mistakes of the past. Sometimes there are consequences. We understand that, but God is a God of second chances. Failure isn't final.
Hey, one more time, thank you again for being here today and for making Ridgepoint part of your week. Before we wrap things up today, we are right in the thick of summer now, and we have 2 big events coming up soon that I want to make sure that you know about. And hey, if you typically watch online and you don't really engage very much in person, both of these events would be a great opportunity for you to kind of slip in with very low pressure and kind of baby step your way in. First, one of our biggest events of the year is our annual garage sale fundraiser coming up July 10th through the 12th. This thing is honestly pretty hard to describe. Take whatever you have in your mind when you hear about a garage sale and multiply that by 10 or 20 or maybe 400. Every year, this sale is ginormous with a huge assortment of clothes, furniture, electronics, decor, books and movies, games and toys, you name it, we have it. This thing keeps growing year after year, and hundreds of people from our Wichita community come check it out, so you should too. The cool thing is this is a huge fundraiser for our student ministry. So not only do you get all kinds of bargains, but you're also helping our students go to camp and serve on mission trips. You can get all the details about the sale at ridgepointwichita.com/garage sale, so we invite you to come check it out. And one more fun and easy summer event, we're hosting our annual family swim night on Sunday, July 13th at Harvest Pool here in West Wichita. All ages are welcome and there's no cost, so gather up some friends, bring your kids or your grandkids, and join us for a fun night of diving boards, water slides, and swimming. And of course, you are always welcome on Sunday mornings for our worship services. If you haven't been in person before, I invite you to check out ridgepointwichita.com/new. That page has everything you need to plan your first visit. And as much as we love church online, trust us, There's something so special about worshiping together in person. So check out that webpage and then come join us. We hope you're having a great summer so far. And whether you choose to join us in person or online, we can't wait to see you again next time. So have a great week, and we'll see you again soon.